Party started.
Okay, we're recording.
And for all of our participants, please put yourself on mute. And if you notice that your video is lagging or anything else like that is happening, then please, you can turn off your video. It's nice to see interaction, but at the same time, if you have limitations on your internet, by all means, feel free to turn your video off. Welcome and greetings to the President-elect training session number 3. It includes strategic planning, goal setting, club roles, and operations. So there's lots of fun stuff in there, but there's also some serious stuff in there to help your club float their boat and keep going along in our wonderful journey that we're doing and growing our Rotary leadership team as President-elect from all of our Rotary clubs and Rotaract clubs as well. We do have our learning and development committee members on board as well, and they are here to help out, answer questions, contribute, and feel free to reach out to any of them that you recognize at any time for questions that you might have about some of the learning and development things that we're doing. Donna Barrett, our DGE, will be joining us later on this evening. She is currently involved with the Rotaract session that's happening right now that will be ending in about 55 minutes. So facilitators, we have some wonderful facilitators here for you tonight. We have Lynn King. She's going to be looking after strategic planning for you, and she is a master strategic planner. Lynn is a proud member of the St. Albert Rotary Club, and she served as president in 2018 to 19. She brings a background in organizational development, leadership, coaching, and mentorship, training, program development, board development, and consulting. Lynn holds 2 degrees in social work, and she has enjoyed over 30 years of leadership adventures in frontline and senior roles in government and not-for-profit sectors. She served as an executive director for the regulatory body of the profession of social work in Alberta, where she worked with numerous stakeholders at local, provincial, and national levels. Lynn is an active volunteer in Rotary and her community in St. Albert. She is married with 6 adult children and 6 grandchildren. She enjoys golf, the outdoors, being a foodie, art, music, theater, and of course, volunteering. So quick applause for Lynn. For myself, I am a member of the Rotary Club of St. Albert since 2011. I grew up in Northern Alberta in a family of 6, and I had both of my parents that were involved in many volunteer municipal activities, local municipal government, and provincial governments. So at a very young age, I was very much into volunteering and helping out with our community, and I truly believe that our purpose here is to help others. I attended the U of A, first majoring in psychology, and I worked with FCSS, so Family Community Support Services, and included volunteering in Northern Alberta on Indigenous reserves areas and off-reserve. I switched faculties and obtained my Bachelor of Education at the U of A in 1995. I taught high school, including English, band, phys ed, art, for several years in Aspen View School Division and also the Evergreen Catholic School Division, before I transitioned into commercial insurance industry in 2004. So I live currently in a Francophone family and community. I obviously sit on the executive board here for the Rotary Club of St. Albert, the chair of learning and development. I also sit as the chair as the St. Albert Arts Development Advisory Committee, few other community boards as well. I also volunteer with our St. Albert Food Bank, Salvation Army, our Royal Canadian Legion, which I am a continuing associate member for 20 years. And we also participate in hosting foreign exchange students from France and Japan. So again, I'm at Rotary Club of St. Albert. Feel free to reach out to me, and here to help you in all of your learning and leadership growth. Randy Patrick. So Randy Patrick is the city manager at the City of North Battleford, Saskatchewan. He holds a doctorate in strategic leadership and foresight and master degrees in leadership and business. Randy has been a member of the Rotary Clubs in Yellowknife, Thompson, Chestermere, and now North Battleford. Randy is married to Luna, and they have 6 adult children as well. So kudos to Randy. All right, I am going to let it off with Lynn, and she's going to start with strategic planning. You can take notes. We are recording, and our facilitators have also offered that if you do want copies of the presentation or their notes, that we can get those to you and forward those to you as well. All right, here you go, Lynn.
All right, good. So we'll get started. Thank you very much, Jody, for that introduction. I appreciate it. First, I'd just like to congratulate everyone on your lead roles. And as a fellow Rotarian, I want to thank you for saying yes to being here. And thank you for stepping up to what's going to be a challenging and really fun role in your clubs. A few years back when I was appointed as president-elect, I thought that I had a pretty good idea already about what strategic planning would entail for a lead role. I'd already been a leader manager for many years in my profession, and I was pretty well versed, I thought, in strategic planning and leadership in my organizations and the organizations that I worked in over the years. And even with that experience, I want to share that what was really helpful for me in preparing to be a Rotary president was informing myself about the Rotary resources and the training preparation that's offered through the district. And my hope is that in this session, you're going to get to experience some of this for yourself. So during our time together, please use the chat for any questions or for adding any comments or any inspiration that you want to share with your colleagues here that are participating tonight. Any ideas that arise for you, use the thumbs up to participate, and I'll address any questions near the end of my presentation. I can't see the chat myself, but I understand someone is watching the chat there for some questions. Here's our learning objectives for this part of our session. First, to identify the steps for planning your year, to identify strengths and weaknesses for your club, being able to set strategic goals, and being able to use my Rotary resources to plan, input, and track goals. So you're going to get some information on resources and tools that are available to you and where you can find these. And you'll also get a little bit of practice and an opportunity to get some ideas from each other. So through our conversation, the intention really is to support you to create the most value and inspiration for yourself. You'll be the captain of your own ship, and hopefully you'll get some ideas here that you can put to some practical use. And by the time we reach the end of this section, the hope is that your mantra will be, I will have a plan, or my team will have a plan, or whatever mantra you'll adopt for yourself. So to get us started, let's take a look at why planning matters, because planning is important.
Lynn, we're having difficulty with the audio. We don't hear anything. Is there any audio with this?
There is, yes. It's music. Some of you may not have been able to hear that, but it was really catchy, funky music. So if I was bopping up and down, that's why. But we get the idea. Planning is important. So to do the best job that we can, it's really always useful to look at a job description. And so you've all received this Lead Your Club as President. So if you've not downloaded or obtained this guide yet, I say run. Don't walk to have it in front of you and start using it. Right at the front of this great guide, it really clearly outlines your job as President-elect and also the job as President. Thumbs up if you're already using this guide. So tonight, what we're doing is we are going to be working with Chapter 1 and Chapter 4 of this guide. So what is strategic planning? Well, it's a process. And here are some things that are commonly included in strategic planning. It includes setting goals and timelines. It identifies who leads and what measures we're going to be using when we track our progress. It involves meeting to establish a process, identifying stakeholders, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, all otherwise known as SWOT. It includes agreeing and documenting a vision, mission, often values. It includes deciding on objectives that are going to support our goals, and then tracking and revisiting our plan regularly. So there it is, summarized for you, the common elements of strategic planning. So when we think about leadership, there are three elements that are musts. Number one is having a vision. Number two is understanding a situation. And number three is having the courage to plan and then act. And so beginning with the end in mind, a question that each of you will be asking is, what is the vision that we have for our club? So when you start thinking about a plan, you'll want to have a good understanding of your club's current condition. We all know that when we're engaged in a process of building a plan, there's a much greater chance of us wanting to support and participate in seeing that plan be successful if we've been a part of it from the start. And there are really any number of ways that you can approach this important step of engaging your members. So for example, in our club, before my Rotary year started, I used some Rotary tools to create a member survey. And I have to say, there are some things in the results of the member survey that happened before the Rotary year started that some were surprising and some not so surprising. So for example, some of the issues in our club might be some common ones that you've encountered, where we're meeting, our meeting times, the quality of the breakfast. But there are also some other issues that came about. So for example, we learned in our club that a good portion of our members really wanted to increase our participation at local levels. And so we were able to use the information from that member survey. It was just really valuable in setting some of the goals that we had for our year. So for example, choosing to create collaboration events with some of our neighboring clubs. And then we also connected to some goals for aligning with the Rotary International Presidential Citation as a result of what we learned through a member survey. So if you've never done one in your club, the templates that are found on the Rotary International sites and the District 5370 sites are fantastic to use and adapt for your own clubs. So here's a good place now to talk about big picture thinking through a systems approach. So in a system, when something happens in one part of the structure, all the other parts are impacted. And so it's really helpful if we're able to see our own individual clubs as an important part of the whole Rotary organization. And what this will look like practically is keeping in the scope of your awareness the resources that are on the District 5370 website and the Rotary International website, keeping in mind that we're a part in our district of in the neighborhood of 100 clubs, and every one of us is affiliated with Rotary International for a global network of over 34,000 clubs worldwide. So you'll get your people together, or at the very least, you'll get your board or executive together for a time for planning. And in strategic planning, it's really helpful to have a neutral person lead the process of planning so that you as the leader then are free to participate along with your team. So as an example, again, in our club, we have a process where we give awards. We have a teacher of the month and recognize certain teachers in our community. And one of our teachers of the month in the year where I was president happened to be a great facilitator who said that she loved strategic planning. So I approached her and I asked her to lead our strategic planning session, and she was just delighted to be asked. And so you may have people in your own circles with the skill to do this with you. You can also get ideas from other people on finding a facilitator if that's the route that you'd like to go. But the beauty of this is that at the end of a single meeting time, there's a plan that naturally emerges, and it'll be strong because it's a co-created result if you did it with your team. So in my experience, having both a facilitated brainstorm session and using a club survey really helped make sure that every member of the club had an opportunity to participate in the goals that were set for the year. And it really gave us a great summary for formalizing the goals that we set together in our club and that we were able to enter and track for the year. So once you've taken the time to explore and identify the current needs in your club, you'll want to narrow the ideas to some key priorities and then set some goals for each of the priorities. So in a little bit, Jody's going to be showing us where you can enter your club's goals. And for me, this really helped me get the connection and the importance of outlining and tracking the club goals and where we fit in the big picture. Now, I'd just like to say a little bit about some terms that are commonly used in strategic planning, particularly the difference between goals, objectives, and strategy. So in the vision, a vision, of course, is the future that we see, our preferred future, and a goal is a result, while an objective is a measurable specific action that we need to take to meet what's required for the goal. And a strategy is the method by which we accomplish an objective. And a strategy can change throughout the course of our activities over a given time frame, while the objectives usually remain the same throughout. So for example, let's have a quick peek and remind ourselves of the Rotary International vision. Together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe in our communities and in ourselves. And then we can see how this is arranged at the international level, where the priorities for Rotary International are outlined, including increasing our impact, expanding our reach, enhancing participant engagement, and increasing our ability to adapt. So on your own, when you're doing your own planning, I really encourage you to review these and then see how Rotary has all of these come together, the vision, the strategy, the goals, and the objectives. And it's a great example for us. So a few tips on goal setting. First of all, you want to keep it short and simple. 3 to 4 goals is ideal 5 is good, and 6 starts to become unwieldy. And when we talk about goals, we're talking about the broad goals, and you'll get a sense of this when you start playing with the tools that are on the Rotary sites. Also keep in mind the Rotary strategic plan, because we've already said in a systems perspective will be powerful globally when we're aligned and we're singing from the same song sheet. And remember, it's a team effort. So in your packages, you would have received this strategic planning guide. Hopefully you were able to download it. And we're going to be going shortly into a group discussion. You'll get to go into a room with some of your colleagues here. And what I'd like you to do in your breakout is work with these questions. The 2 questions are, 1, identify a strength and a limitation for my club at present. And number 2, in the coming year, how might my club best reflect Rotary International's vision and mission? So when you get in your room, please appoint a recorder to share 1 or 2 of the ideas. You're not going to have a lot of time. So if you could just please make sure that you go round table and that everyone has a chance to comment. And when you get back, I'll ask that the recorder please type in point form in the chat box 1 or 2 ideas from your group. Any questions about this? Okay, so let's go ahead and visit with each other and chat with these questions, which will give us some practice to look at the strategic planning guide. Are we all back? Welcome back, everyone. Thumbs up. Yes, we're all back. Okay, how much can we get done in under 8 minutes? How many groups got to question 2?
No.
Anybody? Okay.
None.
Not everybody. Okay, great. Well, we got the hang of it. So here's some great questions that we can take and use with our teams. And so it was fun being in the group that I was with. I'm going to pick on them for an idea to share because I got a name. Lou Henderson, would you like to share a couple of ideas from the group?
Sure. So we talked mostly about the strengths and limitations, and most of the things that were brought up were like a double-edged thing. So COVID was both a limitation and perhaps an opportunity going into the next year to move beyond COVID and come up with a hybrid of some things that we learned during our sort of lockdown. Some of the other limitations were around fundraising and hands-on activities, but some of the strengths mentioned were the members connected so well with the communities. People that would normally have been away were home and got to experience what winter is like back in Alberta again after many years of being away. And I think one of the big things that came out of our discussion were members or the membership ideal of quantity or quality versus quantity. We're not a numbers game. We need dedicated and invested members and not just numbers.
Thank you. Is there a group that got to question 2 that would like to share?
I could share.
Thank you, Marilyn.
We had, we just barely got into question 2, but the question being, how does your club reflect RI's vision? And the one area which was expanding engagement, member engagement, was advised from Victoria and the Southeast Club that they ask members to voice their opinions, and that therefore they can look at different projects other than the ones they've been continually doing historically. So that's helping them to expand their reach, but also to increase member engagement.
Fantastic. So thank you to those recorders that have started to put ideas in the chat. I think that'll be great. And because we're recording this, I think these would be great ideas that we'll be able to share post-meeting. Is that correct, Jody?
Yes, the presentations will be available through a link. You'll have to sign into your Club Runner account to access the link because it's not open to the public. If you want to record the chat, near the end of the meeting, I suggest you click on those 3 little dots in the chat box, and you can record the chat yourself to your own desktop area. So if there's links in there or whatever else, you can record the chat there. But I do believe Deneen also saves the chat, and she can send out the chat along with the survey. She'll send out a survey questionnaire for you and a link for all of your the PowerPoint presentations and documents will be available.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you for your great ideas. You know, some common themes around opportunities for the use of technology and what that means for our clubs. So all some great learning that we all had in our clubs for this year. So I hope that you're able to put the strategic planning guide to use. I find these guides really user-friendly. They are bang on in alignment with strategic planning principles. And when you're using these tools, you can really be confident that you're using a good process with your team. So I hope that you do take advantage of them.
Great, thanks so much, Lynn.
I'm just going to summarize now, Jody, and then I'll be complete. So just to summarize our takeaways on strategic planning, we said strategic planning first is about meeting to establish and working through a process, identifying strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats, agreeing and documenting on your vision, strategy, goals, and objectives, and tracking your progress. And just before I sign off, I want to wish you all energy, tons of support, and lots of fun in your upcoming leadership year.
Wish us energy.
Great. Thanks, Lynn. Thanks so much for your presentation. It's always great to have a past president come in and give you a little bit of sharing and knowledge of their year and what's helpful and what's not, because she's walking the talk, so she knows. If you have further questions for Lynn, by all means, continue them on in the chat if you have other ones. And we'll move on to wonderful goal setting. Goals. So Lynn did mention and talked a little bit about you will have to plan some goals. Now, RI International President does give us some basic goals every year that we have to take a look at. They're automatically downloaded into the My Rotary in the Rotary Club Central. And Rotary Club Central, if you haven't been in there, it's basically a dashboard for your club. You have to sign into My Rotary to get there. So if you haven't done that already, you will need to go to my.rotary.org, and you'll have to go into the My Rotary and set up with your email that you use for Club Runner and a password. That will send you an email link to your email, which you can then set up your account, and you can have full access into there. Now, depending on what your access level is, as a president-elect, you'll be able to go in there, you'll be able to set goals for your upcoming year, you'll be able to pull reports, statistics, you'll actually be able to pull a report on how many members in your club have actually logged in and have registered for My Rotary. So those are things that you can all bring to your leadership team, your strategic planning team, on how you want to get people engaged in the goal setting process. So I'm just going to start screen sharing here now. And okay, here we go. All right, fun things. So here's a little introductory Rotary Club Central video for you.
Rotary wanted to support and strengthen clubs. So in 2012, we launched Rotary Club Central.
良さそうだね。
It was an online tool for clubs to set goals and achieve them. But some of you didn't like it. You said it was slow, complicated, confusing. We realized that we had to do better. So we listened to you and began again. We made Rotary Club Central faster, simpler, and more friendly. Now it does what you asked for. Makes it easy for your club to set goals. Tracks the impact of your projects. Lets you view trends and plan for the future. And helps us help you. The improved Rotary Club Central will help your club succeed. Give it a try. We bet that this time you'll like what you see, and your club will be better for it. Whoa! Okay.
Here we go. Okay. So, in that Rotary Club Central in there, you will need to log into your Rotary Club Central. You go into your member center, you have your online tools, and then you can get into Club Central. So if you take a look, when you go in, you can log in or register. The member center is on the right-hand side. There is also an alternative way that you can access it. Under your other tools, you can go there as well. And then if you scroll down, once you get into the member center and you get into your My Rotary, if you scroll down, you can select the Rotary Club Central. And once you get into your Rotary Club Central, that is where you'll get right to your front dashboard page. It'll be for your Rotary Club. It'll show your logistics of your members. It'll give you some data background on male to female, age groups. And the data is only as good as the data that you input either into Club Runner if you're using that platform, or if you are actually accessing and going straight into Rotary Club Central and accessing and adding members directly there with their information and their logistics. So I'm assuming that all of you have been able to get into Rotary Club Central. You've all registered in there. There are some courses that you can also access that are in the Rotary RI Learning Center. So if you go in there, you can go into the Learning Center. It'll show you some of the courses and some of the things that you can download. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to go straight into your Rotary Club Central. I'm going to show you kind of what it looks like, so that you know how to navigate and get around in there. So I do have that open. All right, so can you see the screen that says My Rotary?
Yep. You bet.
Perfect. Okay, so this is where we're at. So once you log in, you will see your name at the top right-hand corner. And then if you scroll down, it'll give you a club snapshot of your club, your website if you have one. It'll have your meeting location, your time, the number of your members, your charter date, but keep scrolling down. And then you'll get down here to your online tools. And this is where you're going to be putting in your goals. So you've got your Rotary Club Central, brand centers where you can get all kinds of cool documents, templates, Microsoft Word docs with high resolution GIFs and JPEGs that you can customize for your own Rotary Club. You can get new member certificates. You can get membership cards there. You can get brochures, you can get ideas for videos, things like that, all in the brand center. Learning center is here as well. So when we are done, you're going to want to have all of your leadership team go in and take their appropriate learning course, if they're a secretary or treasurer, for example. But here we're going to go to Rotary Club Central. So you're just going to click on it. It's going to sign you into a new access point there. So it's different than where you are on your regular Rotary.org page. Okay, it's loaded. Okay, so here we go. You're going to get a dashboard, shows your membership trends, gender trends, age trends. If you have projects in there, volunteers, it'll show all of those kinds of trends, and that's just in your dashboard. Where you guys want to be going is your goal center. And in your goal center is where you're going to be actually putting in your goals for your year. There's another place I want to point out to you is called service activities. Service activities is where you're going to be able to get these projects and trending volunteers and hours put in, and it's all from the service activities. So goal center and service activities are two separate spots. If you go into your goal center, you'll be able to see what your goals are for the 2021 year that you're currently in, but then you are going to be inputting in for the next year, which is your 21-22 year. And you're going to have all kinds of areas that you can input in there. Now, the RI president will automatically download and put some goals, general goals in there for you. And then you can also choose some other ones if you want. And as Lynn said, you don't want to pick, 6 or 10. It might get a little, a little overwhelming. If you want to pick 2 to 3 goals on top of what your RI president has put in there for you, then you can. So we have like club membership and district conference attendance and training and fund contributions. So this is for your the International Foundation that you will be putting in here of a goal of what you want your club to do. Polio Plus is another one. Here's this service projects area. Again, you're going to need to go into your service activities to input service projects in there. And I'll briefly show you kind of what it looks like. We wanted to grow our Rotaract area by 1. We did do that. We wanted to do Interact clubs. We want to get 2. Of course, that's a bit difficult with the current environment that we're in right now. We did have a strategic plan that we wanted to have. We want to have online presence, social activities. So these are all different kinds of goals that you can have. Now, some of these are RI ones, so you'll see them when they come up. Ours are club membership, annual fund contributions, Polio Plus, some service projects. These were all from RI, and they're base ones, and you can increase them if you want to. And then, like I said, for service activities, you want to go into a separate one here where you can add a new project or repeat a past service project. And when you go in these, they're very user friendly. You click on it, it'll allow you to create the project. You'll need the dates. You will need the number of volunteers that you have. You will need to estimate the number of hours that are put in. And you'll have to have an estimate or a goal of what you want, and then there'll be an achievement. So what you actually achieved after the project was done. So those are all fun things there. Yes.
We have a question in the chat.
Okay.
Where you are right now. Sorry, it's Marilyn. Lou Henderson is asking if you could explain and show Rotary Showcase, since it's showing there at the top on your screen.
Rotary Showcase. I'm not seeing it.
It says import from Rotary Showcase right in the middle. Right now, you take your cursor further to the right, right there.
Oh, okay. Not sure if it's.
I don't know if your club uses, yeah, you see your club's not using Rotary Showcase. Donna, maybe you want to chime in on that. This is where when you have a great club project or any club project, you record it. Go ahead, Donna, please.
Yeah, so I know, Marilyn, your club uses Rotary Showcase, and it is a great place to share your projects. And if the more clubs use Rotary Showcase, the more valuable I think it's going to be for the clubs that use it and for the clubs that are looking for projects. And I would encourage you to, when you get on the Showcase site, you can look by the district, you can look beyond the district. And I would really encourage you to look at the one in the district that the White Avenue Club has posted. It gives you lots of details, a few pictures about the work that White Avenue is doing. And it's a great way to showcase your work and share with other clubs. Marilyn, you were the one using it. So do you want to talk a little bit about the ease of use?
I won't get into a lot of that, but because of our time, but people can go in there and play with it. It's just a way, and this is why if you go into Rotary Showcase and enter your project there, that's why that little bar says there, import it from Rotary Showcase, because all the details from the project are already populated and you put it in. So just, I think for a lot of people, even the whole Rotary Central is new, Rotary Club Central and goal setting. But this is a great example, Jody, to show what your club is doing. And another thing to remember, just if I might add something, is that we want to track our volunteer time, right? The people that are involved in your club with all of these projects, or people that you have outside of your club that are volunteering their time. Don't forget that administration time, all of your board members can also be put in there as a placeholder for volunteer hours. So just to add that one piece.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there are some other questions here in the chat. So the Rotary Showcase is one. And as far as I understand, the 21-22 year has not been populated yet for the RI goals. I believe that comes out after the Rotary International Conference, but I might be off on that. So Donna, you might have more information in regards to when the RI populates the goal center for the upcoming year.
Yeah, it should be up shortly if it isn't already up.
Yeah, see, and when I go into ours here, when I go into 21-22, there isn't anything that's automatically downloaded yet from what I can see here.
Okay.
You're looking at my screen, so I'm not sure. We always just had ours show up. So unless there's a new process for that, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Jody,
show up the
Jody, sorry, Dennis. Jody, do you mind if I could ask a quick question?
Yeah.
For some, one of my president-elects said that he didn't have access to the edit button, and I'm assuming that it's because you don't have access to edit the goals unless it's your year. So long as you select the proper year, they should have access to it. Is that correct?
That's definitely a possibility as well. And so that's why we're trying to get all of the president-elects added into the club runner for the following year as a president-elect, because the president and their executive team, so your secretary, treasurer, they will all have access to the goal center to add your goals and to modify them there. I know with our club, I'm a club trainer and the club admin, so normally I do. That's why I'm just a little confused as why I don't see anything there, because I can very well go into our current year and add goals or modify them and such, but it may very well be that our current club isn't up to date on adding all of their executive positions for the 21-22 year. So if you're not seeing things, that's when you need to go to your president-elect and make sure that they have updated their current club runner with that information.
In the past as well, the AGs have been for their clubs, the clubs that they're on too, that they can get into there and help the clubs.
Yeah, no, definitely, most definitely. I'm just going to stop sharing the My Rotary here. If you have more questions, by all means, please put them in the chat so that we can address it. We will save the chat, and then we can address some of those questions as well, being cognizant of our time. It's 8:07. And I know there's lots of questions on the club rules that is coming up here next. So I would like to get into that as well. The one breakout question that we were going to have on the goal setting is to think about one goal that you want to set and achieve. And then how are you going to use your leadership team in setting those goals? So we're going to skip the breakout just to get into our club rules. We might have some time after our club rules to maybe come back to our goal settings on some of the goals that you want to set and achieve, and we can circle back at that time. But for our current right now, we have our next section here, which is our club rules. So I'm just going to quickly share what we have here. Because when I do a presentation mode here, when I turn on the slideshow, I'm assuming that you cannot see it. Is that correct? You cannot see this?
No, we can see it.
I can see it.
It's fine.
Okay, perfect. So your club board, there's a difference between your club board and then your club committees. And your club board consists of an elected president, your president-elect that's coming in for the next year, your secretary, your treasurer, and your immediate past president. These come from RI International as a base for your club board. Now, some of you may have amended some of your bylaws, which Randy will get into in our third session here, talking about bylaws for your club. And you may choose to amend this a little bit or not, but this is your base club board and they are elected. So as a president-elect, you can nominate people who you want as a secretary, treasurer, and your incoming president-elect coming in after you. But they do have to be brought up at a general, your AGM, and those nominees have to be presented, and they may just be elected by acclamation, or there may be calls from the floor or other people in your membership that may want to participate in that. Your responsibilities for that board is you're going to oversee the chairs and the committee work that they're doing. You have to review your finances, approve or reject new members. You're going to look at your policies and bylaws. You probably want to do that every year or a couple of years to make sure that you're in alignment with the RI bylaws and also maybe with changes that have come up. And then you always want to make innovative ways to make your club better. The pandemic has shown us that you know, there's different needs within our clubs now, that we need to be more flexible. And in order to make our club better, we have to be have a lot of member engagement and versatility in how we present our clubs and our meetings, our times, and who we're all including in there. So recommended club committees. These are appointed by the president that's in. And typically you have club committees. These are some base ones. You can have club administration, membership, public relations, service projects. Those can be further broken down into things like community services, international services, youth services, fundraising, some people call it ways and means, and then a trainer was added last year in 2020. So larger clubs, you can create a lot of subcommittees to target specific areas and tasks. And in your leading your club president manual edition, you can see in your pages there, 8 and 9 is for responsibilities, and pages 13 to 14 goes over some of your options for club committees and some of your subcommittees. So going back to your leadership style from session 1. So that was way back when we did those in January. You got to feel out your leadership style and figure out on how you're going to create your club leadership organization. So based on that style, who will you nominate to be elected to your board and appoint your committee chairs? So thinking on that, we're going to have a quick breakout that Denise is going to facilitate here for us. We're going to have you in groups of 5, possibly 6, for 5 minutes. And I want you to appoint a recorder to come back and give us an idea of who you're going to nominate to be elected to your board and who are you going to appoint to your committee chairs. So think about your strengths, your weaknesses on people who you want to come into that. And I'm just going to stop sharing here so that we have a chance to get into our breakouts. And you've got 5 minutes to discuss those questions, and then we'll come back and have a reporter come back and give us some ideas on what they came back with. Okay, while we're waiting for everyone to come back, I know there's been some questions in the chat about a goal. Once a goal is entered, if it can be edited or if it's cast in stone. And I know Donna has put in there that we can edit before July 1, and we can double check on that. But once the July 1 date starts, they're pretty much difficult to edit. I've tried to edit them and I haven't been successful in them. So you can put your goals in. That's why it's important to talk with your leadership team that Lynn mentioned. It's a team effort. So you want to make sure that if you're putting goals in there for your, for your foundation, talking to your foundation chair, make sure that's something that they want to be able to work on and accomplish. Same thing if you have some community service, items in there or other service projects, you want to talk with the chairs that you've had in there. But I just want to get back to our goal setting and our club rules. We had 2 questions there. One was a goal that you want to set and achieve. And then, of course, with our club rules is who do you want to nominate to your board? And who do you want to appoint as your committee chair, some strengths and weaknesses of them there. So I'm going to go over to, we're just going to randomly pick somebody unless I have a volunteer. Do I have a volunteer? If not, I'm gonna pick somebody.
I'll volunteer. I'm Cameron from Yellowknife. In our group, we were talking about it's the most important thing is to not just like surprise people in an AGM. Like, hey, I'm going to nominate you. Is give them some heads up and approach people personally, and just say, hey, I think you'd be great on the team. I know myself. I work with my vice president quite closely, and we're thinking about, well, what is our executive going to look like when I'm the president and she's president-elect, and who's going to complement us in terms of what we're doing. And so we approached people personally. It was hard. Some of the people we approached said no. A lot of people said no. So there's people who are like that who won't step up. But if you don't ask people to step forward, they may not volunteer, and you might find somebody who's awesome who wants to be a part of it. And it's important to keep people involved, even if they're not coming to the meetings regularly.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Cameron. Very, very true. You're going to ask people that you think are really great at it, and they may accept or they may decline, for sure. And you may want to look at seasoned people in your club. You also may want to look at newer people in your club. Some fresh ideas that may come from some of the newer members. Just remember, with those newer members, you will need to mentor and coach them along in their role. Or you can also take a seasoned member who maybe had done the role in past and help them mentor them along in that role as well. Do we have another volunteer for either Who do you want to have on your leadership team? Who do you want to nominate to your board, and who do you want to appoint to your committee chairs, or a goal that you want to set and achieve? Do we have another volunteer, or do you want me to pick somebody?
I'll volunteer for the group. We had two things we were talking about. One was someone who doesn't think like the president does on other positions, roles, diversity of thought. But the other comment was that stuck with me was also people who want to speak out. You don't want people who just want to be in the background, and you know, you really want that input, is the idea that of the board and the directors.
Yeah, no, for sure, that's true, Randy. And that's good points to remember and keep in touch with. So I'm going to leave that for now for what we did in our breakouts. But those are things that you want to keep in your mind for goal setting, goals that you want to set and achieve. Include your team members with those goals, and have a strategic planning session with them to talk about those goals and what you want to accomplish. And then also your specific team that you want to have for your board, and then who do you want to appoint for your committee chairs to help bring those goals into fruition. And if you have more questions, like I said, put them in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer or follow up with them after this session. But I would like to introduce Randy Patrick from our North Battleford, Saskatchewan club, and he's going to go over operations with you, and he also has some screen sharing that he's going to show you some of the tips and tricks of the trade. Oh, Randy, you're on mute still.
Working on it. Thank you very much. I hope to help people understand a little bit more around what's going on here. I am going to try to keep this very short. The reason is that I've sat through these, and for me it's going to be 10 o'clock when we're finished, so it's a late enough night, and they gave me 30 minutes, but I'm going to try and do it a little bit less. And I want to talk about the clubs in general. You can see the club operations right now, I believe. Okay. I think that one of the things that really it's not explained very well, and a lot of people will know this, but some might not, is that your club is typically set up as a nonprofit through the province and or territory, and it's a legal entity. You're the keeper of that legal entity for your time period, and it's not a charity typically. That's a much more complicated thing. There are a few clubs that are charities, so you can't issue charity receipts most of the time, and that's a Canada revenue thing. So I'm not going to talk about that, but I just want to define the difference. If you are in a club, one of the things that every club has is bylaws, and there is a standard of bylaws that now I gotta get my screen sharing here and get my mouse going, so give me 1 second. There we go. The bylaws themselves are set up, and there is a standard, and there's the place where it's located for bylaws, the basic standard that Rotary International wants you to have. Those bylaws, when you put them together, have to also match your provincial regulations. So, you know, there'll be stuff in provincial ones or territorial ones. Sometimes it says if club disbands, how the assets are dispersed, for example. So that's often in a lot of them. I believe it's in the Alberta one. You know, but your laws are going to be different than mine. And so I don't want to talk about specifically about them, just generally. One of the things with bylaws is I'm a city manager, and I live with bylaws. That's how everything's operated. The bylaws are really the constitution for the club, I think is the best way of phrasing it. And you really should look at them. Most people don't bother, I think. And I have heard a number of conversations today about a lot of people have taken advantage of COVID and actually looked at the bylaws. So I apologize to those people. Maybe it's a little bit late, but there's some main sections around bylaws that you probably should know about. There's a definition section on everything. And it's going to give some definitions. It might say what a member is. It might say, a lot of different things. When you get into the bylaw, you'll find that you want to define things because you don't want to keep repeating it over and over again, or you need to have some actual honest to goodness definitions, and it's easier to find them in one spot than in the middle of a document. We did spend a bit of time on the board itself and the election of the board, so I don't want to spend much time on talking about that. But I do want to, there's time frames, typically a year, for when elections and terms of office. I think that one of the things that we're creating the bylaws is that we're actually trying to create, you're trying to magnify not just your abilities, you're trying to magnify the board's abilities. And these bylaws give you some basic rules of doing that. So you have the duties of officers. One of the things that you really want to do is not have everyone doing the same thing. It's kind of like that soccer team of 5-year-olds, and they're all over in the same corner kicking at the ball, and instead of playing positions. And there are positions. The president presides at club meetings and board meetings. That's the starting point. For me, that would be, in my business, that'd be the mayor. Immediate past president would be a director. The president-elect is actually doing what you're doing right now, getting prepared for the year. The vice president will preside at club meetings, and the president's not is absent. A director basically attends board meetings and club meetings, right? Secretary keeps memberships and attendance records. Secretaries are worth their weight in gold if you get a good one. And the treasurer oversees all funds and provides an accounting of them. One of the things that we'll talk about here a little bit is the need to make sure that that's important. I don't know about you, but my reputation is worth something, and I don't want someone saying that somehow we managed to lose $1,000. My reputation is worth more than that. I suspect most of your board members' reputations are worth more than that, and something like that can cause you a lot of grief for no particular reason. If it might have been just sloppy, and you really want to avoid that. So you want to have someone who understands. I think someone put in the comments, it's nice to have someone who actually understands a little bit about accounting and bookkeeping as a treasurer. Sergeant R maintains order in club meetings and likes to find the crap out of people, usually, has been my experience. But, I think one of the things is that you're going to have some meetings. You're going to have an annual meeting. It's going to be before December 31st to elect the officers and directors. That allows the training and things to happen like we're doing right now. You're gonna in these bylaws, you're gonna say when you meet, and if you have to change that, you're gonna give notice of the change, and you got to give it to all the club members. Board meetings are supposed to be held every month. Special meetings are called. One of the things that you have is an ability to call a special meeting by a president, or 2 directors can call one if there's a reason for it. They believe there's a reason for it. It doesn't require the president if 2 board members are in agreement that they need to call a special meeting of the board. So it's one of those things that kind of, I'd have the same thing at a city council. I can have 2, I think it's 2 or maybe it's 3, but councilors get together and say you need to call a special meeting. There's rules around the special meeting, but the meeting could be called with or without the mayor approval on that. And sometimes that is kind of needed. I've never really used it that way, but I've seen where it's been useful. Dues. You're going to be paying dues twice a year. And I believe it was December, if I'm not mistaken, and July to RI. One of the things about dues, and everyone, I was with a starting club, and it was really kind of hard for people to get the idea, was that there's RI dues twice a year, US dollars. There are dues for the region, district, and the club also needs dues money. And I think that's one of those things that we forget. So there's 3 different levels, and you got to make sure that you're actually dealing with all of those. Business, voting, basically we're going to have a vote by hands, except for the election of officers and directors, which should be done by ballot. Board may also want to do ballots for some resolutions. There are club committees that we have to take into account. And those are actually listed in Article 11, Section 7. So I'll let you look them up. Most of those are already set up in your organizations. One thing about it is the president is an ex officio member on all committees, so they can attend all committee meetings. It's probably want to let people know you're coming if you're not normally there, but you have that right. Each chair is responsible for the regular meetings and activities of the committee, and supervises and coordinates the work and reports it back to the board. So the chair of that committee actually has a role that is important, and it's not the president's job to go in and run a committee. It is a chair's job. I think one of the things that I want to talk about, though, is the finances, because it's always one where people get in trouble and there's problems. You have to have an annual budget. I do that for cities. Everyone does it for their businesses, at least you hope. And in estimated expenditures, income and expenditures, this year has been kind of a little bit of a mess because of COVID, especially on the fundraising part of it. So hopefully when you got into the year, you looked at that and said, we're going to have some difficulties. Let's put that into the budget. The treasurer deposits the funds in the financial institutions, and there are a minimum of 2 accounts kept. They're supposed to keep 2 separate bank accounts. One is for club operations and one is for service projects. Don't mix the money up. It is a real problem. Again, I was in a starter club, and it was one of the problems that we had was making sure that was done right. But it sure made life a whole lot easier when you had to account for things. Bills are paid by the treasurer or authorized officer and approved by 2 other directors. Again, I like to make sure that I'm protected, and you never ever do the blank check thing. Even no matter how easy it is, never do it. You should have someone look through it and review the annual financial transactions every year that knows what they're doing, and give everyone a financial statement of the club, ideally a mid-year report with current and previous year income and expenses, and that's to be presented at the annual meeting. So those are just general rules. Like almost every organization does the same thing. If you're going to amend the bylaws, find out what the rules are for your province, and make sure you actually follow them. Because there is going to be some requirements around that, and it will also be in your bylaws as to how you go about amending. But they two have to go together and make sure they actually work. I think there's the fun stuff of being president. I'm actually a little facetious here. This is the stuff I truly hate, but it's the stuff I need to do, right? You oversee the management of the club, not all of it, by the way. You oversee the management of the club, and you make sure your club invoice is paid. So, Rotary International, you can pay it. There's a few positions that can pay that with credit cards on the Rotary.org, I believe it was. We're supposed to encourage members to attend district training meetings. This one is a real challenge for just about everyone, I find. And by the way, I appreciate the number of people who do show up to these fairly regularly. For, this is one of the benefits of Rotary, is that you actually get this kind of training before you walk into the job. Part of your job is to minimize risk. We'll talk a little bit more about that associated with club activities. You want to make sure that your logos are being properly used. Rotary wants to protect those logos. So you start making funny pictures out of them, you start to degrade the brand. And really your job is to make sure that never happens. It's done properly, the colors are right, all of that sort of thing. And I think the part that actually is fun is bringing the best out of your club members. I think that's what leadership is, and I suggest, as I said, that is the fun stuff. So that's not where I think that you actually have to, that's the whole idea, is to be better than you were. One of the things I was asked to talk about was risk management. And noticing the time, so I may be rushing this a little bit, and I do apologize, but I don't want to keep you too late. Risk management. You got to think before your activities. My job and senior management jobs in all sorts of businesses is risk management. It's a starting point. You want to make sure that you see risk, you find out what it is, and you try to minimize it. You find ways to, well, I guess reduce, and where you can't do it, you make sure that there's also insurance coverage. Don't forget, you have a legal issue. You may find yourself paying out dollars of your own money if you haven't covered yourself properly, because you're in charge of this organization, you're in charge of it. And I want to make sure that no one has that problem ever. I haven't actually heard of it in Rotary, but I know in other organizations, if you don't cover yourself and think about what you're doing. And part of that, for example, even something as simple as having the 2 signatures and never writing a blank check, never signing a blank check, that's covering yourself. That's risk management. One of the things that Rotary often will have is some events where there's drinking involved. Be very careful around drinking events. Ideally, you use someone else's liquor license so they take the responsibility. Make sure there's the cab rides if people need them. But one of the things that don't go and have real swords at a sword fighting event. That would just be kind of normal. And if you are doing something like that, then you figure out how to lessen that risk. You modify the activity so that you're not going to find yourself in a lot of trouble. And one of the things that we want to make sure that you're aware of is that any of these activities that you're going to do, check to make sure you're covered by insurance. We changed insurance providers a year or so ago, I understand. So things that may have been covered in the past may or may not be right now. So don't assume that because you've done it for 25 years, you're covered. If you have an activity and you want to find out about it, and you should want to find out about it, is go to our insurance provider and ask them in writing to provide you with information of what your coverage is for that type of event. They can do that. I understand they're quite happy to do that. But I want to make sure that everyone has, because we have changed insurance companies, that you do know what your coverage is. And I don't want you being surprised and finding you weren't covered after the fact when you really need to have been covered. Look at contracts. One of the things that I've seen is wine tasting, and the contract was for us was with a store that actually sold wines. We spelled out that we were using their liquor license, that it was we weren't responsible for the operations of that. You spell that out. And you make sure that on something like that you have some legal counsel. If you have a member that's a lawyer, might help. But someone else has taken a look at that document to make sure that you're covering yourself. I think one of the things that needs to be remembered is that every year when you put something on, especially ongoing stuff, take a look at your procedures. Make sure there's procedures in place for what you think you're going to have, and then every year go back and take a look at them and fix them for things that were wrong. Right, that guide to the next person who wants to put the lottery on should be able to. They should be almost a guide created saying, "Here's the pitfalls we found in the past. Here's how we corrected them. Here's some issues we may still have." And I think that helps just have people understand a little bit better and a bit of corporate memory. But keep in mind that your job as president is to make sure that we don't take undue risks. Have fun, but don't do really challenging stuff, I guess, beyond the risks that you should be taking. Our dues are coming up for the next few years. 2019, 2020, they were $34 per every half year. They're going up to $34.50 in 2021, $35 in 2021, 22, $35.50. And that's the half year thing that we talked about earlier. I think it's also important to remember US dollars. So it could be real money, right? Depends on what happens with the Canadian dollar. It's July 1st, pardon me, I had the wrong date on that, and January 1st, I thought the end of December, but it's January 1st of each year when those dues are done. They can be paid for by the credit card on the Club Admin page. Have the budget at the beginning of the year. You really can't control your spending unless you have an idea of what you're going to spend. It's really easy to give away money, but you have to earn that money somewhere else, and so don't have your money for whatever commitment you think you're going to need, and potentially a little bit of a reserve for other commitments you aren't expecting. But you really kind of think it out during the year what you actually want to spend based on what you can raise. Again, keep your club account separate, 2 signatures. Report back to the board monthly on the financials. The board should know what's going on all the time if there's any issues. And again, halfway through the year, ideally financial statements. And then again, for the annual general meeting, you need financial statements. Those go into the province typically as well. So, you know, that's part of the keeping your club legal. You will find that under the bylaws that or under the legislation that you have to do things to keep your own club legal provincially. And I think that's basically the stuff that I wanted to talk about. I wanted, in the end, the idea here is to leave the club to the next president in better shape than you received it. And I can't stress that too much. Our job is, it's, you know, if you look at a corporation or a club in this case, legally, and I'm not going to pretend I'm a lawyer, but legally, you have to give that the care and attention of a child. You're the adult. And it's your job to make sure that when you pass it on, that it's in better shape. So I think I put that about as quick as I could. And again, I do apologize. I know we're running a little bit late, and I don't want to keep you late. I did want to do one more breakout, if that's still okay, Jody. Okay. And I think the question is just from the conversation, what area of the club operations would you want to improve? One area. Don't take on all of them, because that'll be quite a challenge for you. Or alternatively, how would you ensure good stewardship of the club financially? I think was the second question that was worth doing. We'll do the breakout about 5 minutes, come back, report out, and I think we might even finish on time.
I'm just looking at some of the questions that we have here in the chat. Lots of good questions here. Lots of good things about the planning, the goal setting with the goal center, your club roles, your leadership team that you are going to have working for you, with you as a team effort. And then of course, Randy with his operations. So I want to thank all of our facilitators for doing that. Yeah. I just want to let you know what's coming up next in our series, and then I'm going to hand it over to Donna. Our next series is on April 13th, and it is about membership engagement, partnerships, and diversity. I've heard lots of comments about how people, their goal is to increase their membership or to retain the current membership they have. You really want to get in on that one, on that session. We have quite a few people that are involved in that one, so it should be very good. And then Jim wanted to remind all of you that on March 17th, he's going to send you out a meeting link for the survey on the results that were sent to ex-members, so people that had left Rotary and getting reasoning why. So that, again, another thing for membership retention questions there. And Donna, you had a couple of things that you wanted to mention.
Yeah, I do. And thanks for giving me just a couple of minutes at the end. The district is doing its strategic plan. And the focus of the district is really to support the clubs to reach their goals. And so I'm asking each of the president-elects to go back and talk to your club, just the way Lynn suggested. We need to get input from our clubs in order to develop our strategic plan. So I have 2 questions, and I'll send them out to you with the information tomorrow. We want to know, from your club perspective, what is the district doing well? Because if those things are working, we want to just keep doing those for you. The other thing we want to know is, what does your club feel we need to focus on in the upcoming year? This is a different year, and this is really, really important. So what I want you, we're going to give you a month. So to actually talk with your club and get some feedback, you can, there's going to be a link set up for you as the president-elect. So whatever you hear, just put it in that link, And then we're going to look at that. We're going to look at what you've told us and try and organize it in some themes so that we'll develop a plan that is responsive to your needs. And at the end of the year, next year, you could give us some feedback about how we've done with doing that. So thanks for your time. We'll get all of the information out to you in the next day with everything else. And just looking forward to hearing what your clubs have to share. That's it. I'm done.
All right, perfect. All right, so I think that's it. I mean, we have about 5 minutes left in the session. I don't know if that's a ton of time to let people chit chat or get into breakout rooms to discuss further. So my suggestion is that we end our session here 4 minutes early. And like I said, if you do have questions, please put them in the chat. We're going to save the chat. We'll address them all when we get to them. We do have resources for you. We're going to send things out for you. I know there's questions on the insurance. We're going to get the broker to do the outline or overview of what's covered and then highlight what's not covered. Definitely that's not covered. Things like rib fests, or if you have public liquor events. If you have private liquor events, they're covered, but public ones are not. So there's just so many things. And as an insurance broker, I can tell you there's just way too many things there to put in the chat. So we will get the broker to overview on that and get you the resources for your goal center and the other things that you've put here in the chat as well. So
just real quick on that though, often you can buy the extra insurance. Just wanted to point that out that, you know, if it's not covered, you may be able to cover it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you can cover just about anything nowadays. It's just that you'd hate to go out and buy insurance for something that we may already have on the district-wide policy for the clubs. But with the new insurer, yes, there are some things that are different now. And with COVID, I mean, we haven't had a lot of, large, in-person activities or galas or rib fests or anything else like that. So we've been pretty insulated, but coming up, if things do open up, we have to take that into account. But yeah, so if there's any other questions or any last comments that anyone would like to make, you've got the stage for another 2.5, 3 minutes. And everybody's quiet.
There was a comment, Jody, in the chat. It was Victoria that suggested to have all the club presidents meet once every 2 months or a quarter or whatever else to exchange ideas. There used to be the Edmonton area presidents grouping that would get together, and I don't think anything happened last year on it, and certainly perhaps even the year before. But with it being virtual, all of the club presidents could get together and they can assign, for themselves how often they want to get together.
That's a great idea, because we get a lot of feedback from people that say, you know what, we want to collaborate more. We want to talk more. We want to have more breakout sessions. We want to find out what other clubs are doing and share that information. We've had a couple of clubs come to us wanting to know about Teacher of the Month and how we're organizing it. So absolutely, that's a great idea. And that's something that we'll talk in the Learning and Development Committee and see if maybe we can get a president meeting going on and see how we can set that up and facilitate that through the district.
Put it in your ideas for that club feedback too. So we'll have it captured in writing because we're really going to take a close look at that, whatever you send us.
Yep, nope, perfect. Awesome. Well, I wanted to thank all of you so much for participating. Being leaders in your Rotary clubs, being leaders in your community, in your family, in your workspaces. You never know how much of an impact you have until maybe sometime, shortly away from this point in time, or maybe sometime down the road. But we all make huge impacts, and we are changing lives. And we really thank you for your service and for your volunteerism and your time tonight in becoming a better president-elect for your leadership team coming in 21-22.